All right, I'm starting the recording. And we're going to start the broadcast in about 5, 4.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Alan Schimmel, Editor-in-Chief at DevOps.com, here welcoming you to another great DevOps webinar. And I think today is going to be one of our better ones. Today's webinar is Dashboards for DevOps, and it really is going to focus in a little bit about how STRATUS Solutions helps teams monitor the metrics that matter. And today's webinar is actually sponsored by our good friends at Electric Cloud. And every time we have an Electric Cloud webinar, it never ceases to be a great one, so there's no reason this one shouldn't. Before I introduce you to those smiling faces you guys see on the screen, I wanted to quickly take a moment and just let everyone know that we have set aside time for questions today. And in your GoToWebinar control panel, most of you probably see that on the right side of your screen, if you're not dialed in and going through computer, you will see a section marked questions. And if you hit the little caret or arrow so it's facing down, that should expand. And you can see that you can put your questions in there in real time. I really like this feature because if you're like me, a question pops in your mind and by the time the questions period is open, I forgot the question. So please don't risk forgetting your good questions, because questions make great webinars. Make for great webinars. Write your questions in real time in the question section. They'll be queued, saved. We'll be able to get to them. If for some reason we weren't able to get to your question, we will have a record of it and we could ask our panelists to perhaps answer it in writing after the webinar concludes. But we will try to get to as many questions as possible. So please do that. If for some reason, on the other hand, you're having any technical difficulties, audio's a little choppy, I sound worse than I sound now, or video's not, the slides aren't moving, please use the chat section of our webinar, which is down on the bottom. We do have webinar engineers standing by who will respond and do their best to help you get the most out of today's webinar. So please, chats for technical issues, questions are for questions, novel idea there. And we will be doing some polling questions today as well, but not much for you guys to worry about other than voting and making your choices on that. But I do want to mention that as someone who sits through a lot of webinars myself and MCs a lot of webinars, the polling questions where you get to hear in real time kind of from the audience is really a great feature to make it, number one, to make it more interactive, but number two, to give the presenters a chance or an opportunity to see who is out there. Where are they on their DevOps journeys or what have you? You know, where's the needs, where's their beliefs? And it makes just for a better webinar. So please, don't stand by. Just sit in, you know, don't stand by on those polling questions. Please answer them. Got a question already, I'm not sure, but let me also answer the usual first question. Yes, this webinar is being recorded, and yes, the recording and the slides will be made available via our YouTube channel, which is DevOps TV, all one word, and usually on DevOps.com within 24 to 48 hours. And I'm not quite sure, but sometimes our friends at Electric Cloud, I think, make it available on their site as well. Well, with that being said, let's move right along. And let me introduce you quickly to our panel members today. So we're lucky to have two folks from STRATUS Solutions. We have Brian Price, VP at STRATUS Solutions. Brian, welcome. Brian, can you hear us? Hello?
I can. It's great to be here, Alan. Thanks.
So that was my little secret sound check, Brian. Thank you. And joining Brian from STRATUS Solutions, Senior Systems Engineer Dave Page. Dave, you there?
I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. And then certainly last but not least, one of my good friends in the DevOps space, the one and only Sam Fell. Sam, you're there.
Hey, Alan.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, I'd like to hand things off a little bit now to Sam. and he can, or actually I can walk through our agenda, Sam, or would you like to?
I'll run through it. That's fine, Alan. Thank you.
You got it, and good luck, everyone, and I'm listening. Looking forward to a great webinar.
Me too. Thanks.
Okay.
So today, folks, we're going to talk, obviously the title is Dashboards for DevOps. We're going to be talking about visibility and how important it is as part of the end-to-end software delivery process. So we're going to talk about the challenges that's involved in getting that visibility, how folks on the journey, how are they getting to DevOps and realizing that value of visibility. The STRATUS Solution folks have done a fantastic job, created some really interesting things for our mutual customers. So we thought we'd share some of that with you and then have them talk about some of the success stories that they've gone to. But we're going to start off with just simply talking about the challenges. What are some of the challenges that a DevOps team is facing? And a lot of it is around shared visibility. You have teams. If you have a single team, a small team, sorry, my slides are going haywire. If you have a single team, a smaller team, you know your tool chain. All the tools in your tool chain might even be in the same building, or at least there might be one person who sort of understands how all those tools fit together. It's easy to get the information out of that when it's not distributed around. We have maybe tens to hundreds of developers and not tens to hundreds of teams of developers that are all working on a pipeline. What we find, though, is as teams propagate and as you get more of these two pizza teams, those two pizza teams may have their own flavor of a DevOps stack that they choose to use. Making sure that they get the ability to see different paths, different pipelines that are coming into environments that they care about becomes really, really important. And it becomes very hard to do because there's a lot of overlapping tools, there's a lot of redundant tools, but they all need to be supported because you want to make sure that your DevOps initiatives that you have going on in the enterprise are being supported and they're not being dragged down by trying to make everybody conform to a specific tool chain. And that, of course, becomes even more important as you think about the ever-expanding, world of tools that are out there. Whatever you're using today, chances are a year from now there's going to be another niche product that's going to solve a very real problem for you. It's going to be developed and you're going to want to incorporate it as part of your tool chain. And you should be able to do that. And you should be able to get visibility into the performance of that as part of your overall pipeline. So what are some of the problems that are keeping people from really getting to DevOps and getting the ability to sort of have this visibility? Well, we talked about this a little bit already. That cross-team sharing is hard. The sharing of information, the sharing of environments, of pipelines, of artifacts, even the tool chains and the different resources. And that's a critical component for becoming a more DevOps-oriented team, is being able to share that control, that visibility across all those resources. Manual work is blocking a lot of people's progress. The handoffs are really hard for them when they're trying to work in between all those different teams that we were talking about. The work is unpredictable and it's error prone. A lot of that becomes a problem when you need approvals or auditability. If there's unpredictable error prone work that's happening, it's very hard to govern that. Traceability, which is obviously very important from a sharing information perspective, is very hard. Security is hard. If you don't know which things are being injected into various pipelines as part of all the downstream hierarchical pipelines that you're running, understanding all of the different areas where an exploit could be found is difficult if you can't report on it and you don't know all of the different steps that this code has gone through before it hits production. That's a hard thing to do. And then finally, scaling all these things that we've talked about is hard. Doing all of these things, of course, not for a team of 10 to 100 people, but for tens to hundreds of different teams trying to do this type of work, it becomes really difficult. So I think we all sort of know what DevOps is. The fact that DevOps teams really do focus on that CAMS, the culture automation, measurement, and sharing. It's supposed to be measurement, but the font changed apparently. And sharing. This allows these high-performing DevOps teams to deliver. This is a puppet state of the DevOps report that Gene and Puppet and the Dora Institute worked on together. 200 times more frequent deployments, 24 times faster recovery, a lot better change, lower change failure rate, and faster lead times. Right. what we're going to be focusing on today, the conversation that we're going to be having today, really is about the automation and the measurement aspect of it. So let me dive into the automation and measurement aspect from the electric flow perspective. Then we'll have a quick polling question, then I'm going to hand it off to Brian so we can go through some real-world examples. So Electric Flow is our DevOps release automation platform. It's a single platform that orchestrates all the different tools that you have, all the different environments, and all the different business processes that you have within your environment. It allows you to model, automate, and coordinate that end-to-end life cycle, the modeling aspect for your applications and environments. All these things allow you to abstract out any given dependencies on individual environments or other applications or tiers. The automation, we're the most scalable orchestration and automation solution for DevOps release automation on the planet, allowing people like Qualcomm and Samsung to run millions of jobs without ever having any problems running the things and getting them done, and then coordinating it, making sure that the work is made visible to people, that you're securing the environments, the projects, the binaries, the groups in a very easy enterprise way, plugging right into LDAP, Active Directory, all that sorts of thing. And of course, that's interesting, but it's no good if you can't use the processes that you've already defined or the tools that you're already working with. So we want to make sure, you can't ever bring in a new tool and say, okay, I'd like you to replace all the tools you're currently using. The DevOps teams, they are attached to their tool chains. It's giving them the outcome that they need. So what we do is we come and we integrate with all those different tools, and we give a single one-to-one mapping of functionality at the sort of the user experience or user interface level using either our UX, our plugins, our REST API, an SDK, domain-specific language all around application release automation, and a command line interface that really provides the future-proofing for you to be able to continually onboard these new tools that you're going to be using in your pipeline and make sure that you have control and visibility over that tool. And of course, once you have all these tools connected, at that point we have very easy to use domain-specific functionality that allows you to do things like set up, build, and test or commit pipelines, set them up, the deployment pipelines, and then track and coordinate those releases, whether that's a traditional 18-month type release cycle where you're running steps all the time, or it's more of a CD-style pipeline where you do a commit and it automatically goes to the end. Maybe it's automatically deployed, maybe it sits there waiting for an approval. Those are some common use cases that we've developed some technology to help people solve, but we also, the platform allows you to solve pretty much any use case that you need to. And so we give you the ability, again, using the robust APIs and the domain-specific language to really get in there and make the tool do what you need it to. So that, I think, is a good spot for us to pause. I'm really interested to hear more about what STRATUS Solutions is doing with our platform than the platform itself. Alan or Jules, do you want to do a polling question?
Yeah, let's pop our first polling question up here, Jules. And here it is. Do you currently use a dashboard that aggregates data from multiple DevOps tools? Kind of simple question and really not too much to think about answering. Yes, no, or maybe you're not currently using DevOps tools at all. So shouldn't take us too long. As I mentioned earlier, voting is appreciated and encouraged. Actually, this is a good time to mention. You should register to vote now. But vote now in our webinar and worry about the presidential election later. But anyway, we'll close it out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Ooh, I don't know, guys, if this is what you were thinking, but fully 1/3 of the audience is already using a dashboard, which I don't know, I find that surprising. About half, 49%, are not. And there are 18% of you here who are not currently using any DevOps tools, and I hope to see that number shrinking, and talk to us afterwards if you need any help there. Sam, what do you think about these answers?
It doesn't, the thing that surprises me the most are the folks who say we're not currently using DevOps tools. I think maybe there might be misunderstanding among the folks that are on the call, because pretty much any tool can be a DevOps tool if you can, do a command line interface to it, or there's an SDK or an API that will touch it. So these tools are part of that. If it's part of your software lifecycle and you want to practice DevOps, you can call that a DevOps tool.
Yep. Understood. Okay. Well, let's, with that information, armed with that information, let us move on now to our next slides. And Sam, would that be your slides?
I think we have a couple more polling questions.
Oh, we're going to do them. Okay. We're going right into question 2. I apologize. Okay, here we go. Well, what is the time frame you are planning to implement DevOps? This is especially important to the 18%. Select one of the following: already doing it, 0 to 6 months, 7 to 12 months, 13, so a year or more out, or no plans at all. Again, please vote. And given the last answer, Sam, I hope most people are already doing it, but let's see. We'll close it off in 5, 4, come on, a few more votes, 2, 3, 1. Okay, survey says, oh, this
Great.
makes sense, I guess. 64% are already doing it, with fully another 20% in 0 to 6 months. So between there, you've got almost 85% of people. 7 to 12 months is another 10%, and still 5% with no plans at all really to implement DevOps at this point.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about that is there's so many different ways of saying, what does that mean, implement DevOps? Does that mean that you're trying to continuously improve your process? At which point you can say you're practicing DevOps. So there are a lot of different sort of gradations as to what that means. It doesn't necessarily mean you've chosen a tool or you're subscribing to some dogma. It just means that you're focused on shipping great product and you're committed to making that process better all the time. So.
Absolutely. But that goes when you have an area like DevOps that doesn't have a manifesto, doesn't have sort of an official description. You can't blame people by saying, well, you may not have the right description. But Sam, we're going to hit our next polling question here.
Great.
Okay, let's get it. What is the time frame you are planning to implement deployment or application release automation, or as we call it, ARA? And again, same answers as DevOps in general. Already doing it, 0 to 6 months, 7 to 12 months, 13 plus months, a year out or more, or no plans at all currently. And maybe a little harder because you guys are going to think about ARA and what does that mean, but hopefully you know, and if you don't, Sam has a word for you he can give you. But anyway, we'll close it off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the answers are, this is encouraging, 55% already doing it, Sam, 22% within 0 to 6 months. So again, we have about 80% there, right? 77% there who are right there. And then 7 to 12 months, another 11%, more than a year out, 1%, and a little bit higher than DevOps in general. No plans here is 11%.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Such a critical part of becoming successful with any DevOps transformation is eliminating that friction downstream. And so getting that application release automation solution up and running and easing that bottleneck, I think, is a critical part of it. So that's wonderful to see.
Excellent. So are we ready to move things over to Brian?
I believe so.
Brian Price, Vice President, STRATUS Solutions.
Alan and Sam, thank you guys so much for the beginning of that and the intro there. So definitely we're pleased to be here. And part of the discussion today, Sam, has alluded to a lot of the benefits that DevOps really has had using a number of countless studies that we've seen. And today we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about once a team has gotten DevOps really implemented, and obviously it evolves over time, but making the most out of that investment that the team has already looked at and taken time to really integrate into their overall process for delivering the software that they're doing. So, one thing that we find a lot is, DevOps is not just a set it and forget it process. Sam alluded to the fact that there's a new tool and a set of tools that come out pretty much, yearly that, you want to look to evaluate to see if you can gain more efficiency. And really, what we find is that once you really get that appropriate set of tools implemented initially, and then you use maybe a tool like Electric Flow to help automate the entire process to go from development to production really seamlessly and autonomously, you really want to look at the metrics that come out of these individual components within DevOps to get the most benefits. So what we've found, is pretty much every DevOps tool produces different metrics. So, for example, if you look at a tool like Jira that most people use to help plan their overall releases, you can see things like the velocity of a team or count the number of software potential defects that's happened. But what we find is that a lot of times that these tools in themselves provide some great reporting features on just the information captured within that tool. But within the entire DevOps ecosystem and the tools that are in use in most organizations, there's all sorts of other information that other tools are producing that ultimately, when you combine them together, can produce some really valuable insights into the overall health and status of the organization. So what we've found and what we'll talk about today is how we've used dashboards to really pull together, just like Electric Flow helps pull together different automation for different tools, how dashboards can really help pull together the metrics from different tools to really give teams very good information about the status of their overall release. So maybe the interrelation between the bugs that's been reported in Jira to the failed tests in an automated test platform, to the build failures, and even the files that have been changed that a SCM tool kind of provides us that information from. So with that being said, to kind of illustrate this, what we've done is we've put together a scenario today really based around a software company. We picked one that, most people that watch the hit HBO series should recognize. So in our scenario, Pied Piper, we've kind of built a scenario really around a typical software team. You've got, they're producing a web app and a mobile app. The web app obviously contains some different web services that is consumed by the mobile app. We're going to show and illustrate how they have 3 concurrent releases going on now. They're working on a minor release for both their web and their mobile app that highlights and adds a new encryption algorithm. The web app obviously produces an API that the mobile app will consume. So there's a little bit of a lag in the delay between the web app release and the mobile app. And there's also a patch release that they're working on as well with the mobile app to fix a security vulnerability. So in most organizations, teams, are advanced beyond just a waterfall methodology and are looking to really adopt a more agile way of delivering software to respond to these types of events. So we've simulated that within our scenario today. And lastly, to kind of illustrate and talk about this environment, they really have 4 deployment environments: a dev environment, a test environment, a QA environment, which to get into QA and to get out of QA, there's some manual steps. It's one of the things that we find that Electric Flow really helps facilitate very easily within organizations. And finally, their production environment, where once everything has been automated and orchestrated, it can kind of flow directly through that pipeline. So with that being said, I'm going to describe a little bit about, after we talked about their overall, what they're building and kind of their deployment environments, their DevOps environment. So this just kind of illustrates the different technologies that they're using, so that you'll see in our overall dashboard. So we're using Grafana for a dashboard today to help illustrate how easily it is to pull in different tools and technologies into a consolidated view. They're using GitHub for an SCM, which most organizations are using something like GitHub or SVN or some other tool like that. Using Jira to help do some task planning and project management. They're using a tool called iTest. This could be very easily other tools like Robot Framework to help to do automated testing as they go through their software release process. And then finally, Electric Cloud's Electric Flow platform really helps with the automation and orchestration between all of these different products and all these different tools to help move that software all the way from dev through production and facilitate the gates in between. The way that this will kind of all be shown through a series of dashboards that I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to one of our lead program managers and engineers, Dave Page, to kind of walk through this demo, showing the power of using dashboards to give that enhanced visibility through each of these different products, but also it can help you better understand where the bottlenecks may exist between your development team versus your operations team, which ultimately, together, when that communication is improved, improves the overall efficiency and release frequency of your entire project.
Hey, thanks, Brian, and thanks everyone for taking time to view and attend the webinar today. I'm going to be showing you a demo around the information and scenario that Brian has just laid out. We're going to start at a high-level view. We're going to begin to drill down into the stages and tools and processes that make up a DevOps environment. In the demo, we focused on the development stage because it provides the best means of showing a wider breadth of metrics for more tools and showcase a forensic path. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to differentiate bottlenecks between an engineering issue, a PM issue, i.e. release planning or spread grooming or even infrastructure. So we wanted to show how we can present answers to critical questions through dashboards. Visualizing how dashboards can help you identify critical bottlenecks within your DevOps environment, how you help quickly identify possible issues, facilitate quick decision making, and ultimately remediate and ensure stability within the release pipeline, ensuring they sustain the cadence or on track, if you will. So a little bit of background. This demo is in a live environment. Of course, the scenario is made up. We're not actually developing any code. We're using an open source codec to progress our release. The full suite of tools are truly configured to emulate a real organization's development, test, QA, and production DevOps environments. So as I progress through the dashboards, you'll notice at the very top of all of them, there's filters. They're displayed so that, in this case, you'll see the flow server, the project, the release, owner. These filters are customizable and are used to focus the dashboard widgets on information that you're interested in seeing based on the layout and the data mined for that particular view. Each of the dashboards that I'm going to show are pulling in data from a variety of DevOps tools. So let's get to the meat. In this scenario, our previous release cadence was 6 months. We think we've done a pretty good job in optimizing our process, our infrastructure to a point. We could essentially half our cadence from 6 to 3 months, and we're going to run off 2-week sprints. So we're going to walk through here and see if we got it right. So what's displaying now is our flow release dashboard. All the data pulled in from this dashboard is coming from electric flow. This dashboard focuses on the active releases that we're tracking. It's a high-level view mainly aimed at upper management so they can understand where each release is in the pipeline. So in this case, so how are we doing on our patch release, which is the focal point of our first row. This row of metrics provides insight into the health and status of a specific release. Again, in this case, 2.201. This first widget that we see on the far left is telling us our release completion. This percentage is determined by the number of tasks that we have to complete our software from development to production, which we're going to call our release pipeline. In our case, we have 7 tasks that make up our 5 stages, and we're on task 5 of 7, which gives us our 71%. You'll notice this metric's green because our remaining 2 tasks are automated. The second widget here indicates how much time we have left until our release deadline, which we're getting pretty close at this point. The third widget displays a status to our manual step for our release. So we have a manual step between dev and QA, and this is letting us know that we've been through and approved that stage. Our fourth widget, still on the top row, is another manual step in our pipeline to indicate if our QA team has given a final approval to actually push it to production. As you can see, someone should probably go check with the QA team to ensure, the approval's on track by tomorrow morning. We're getting kind of close. The last widget is our stages and lets us know what the status was of any given stage. Here we can see that we've successfully progressed through 4 stages, and once QA gives the approval, then it'll execute the remaining planned stage and push to production. The middle widget here on row 2 is a nicely rolled up overview of all our active releases. It makes it very easy to know at a glance how well our pipeline is progressing per version. So quickly, we can see our completion percentage, our time left to release, the stages in currently, our start delay, which is how late we started our release project, how long we've been in the or actively working on this release, when it was planned and started to finish, as well as how long it's been sitting in any particular stage. Well, in this case, our current stage. Obviously, we can get a lot of good information just from this one chart. This last widget at the bottom is our manual intervention. It lets us know if we have any manual stages that we need human intervention in a particular release at any given time. In our case, we want to hold the middle and bottom widget static while we have the ability to scroll through and focus on the top row, which is isolating our releases. In this case, for instance, in the middle widget, our overview widget, we can see that PyPiper Mobile 2.1 is at 28%, and we only have 2 weeks or so to get that into production based on our planned release. Now, that's probably not so good. I can look at that a bit closer by going to the release pull down, selecting my 2.1 version. I can easily see that I'm held up needing a dev team approval. So let's look at our project dashboard to see if to focus in a little bit further. So in the top left pull down, we're going to select our project dashboard. This dashboard is pulling data from both Electric Flow and Jira. This dashboard would be relevant to PMs or software team leads, providing good insight into how releases are tracking, as well as the project, how's the project structured. We could have broken this down into sprints. Different organizations do things in a variety of ways. We decided to break this up in epics for our version projects and issue planning. To sustain context here, we took a subset of the overview widget we saw in the release dashboard and pulled it into the view for a more holistic view of the project, coupling the project planning and our release pipeline together. The second widget in the first row of our status breakdown is our status breakdown. This is letting the team lead or PM know how many issues are in a given status. We can see in this case all 121 issues have been completed for our Web 3.1, which is good. The third widget to the far right indicates a breakdown of the issues that we were able to solve in this release. For example, in 3.1, we resolved 37 bugs. Moving to the bottom left widget, our status count by epic. This graph is an easy means of looking at issue status. I know where I was, I know where I am, I know where I'm heading in my workflow. Moving over to the right, I'm looking at my issue type based on epic over time. Don't get confused too much by the graph. It's a stat graph, so the values build upon one another. The important thing is to understand that it lends itself nicely to seeing trends. In our case, 3.1 is looking pretty good. Things are on the up and up. However, we know that 2.1 has an issue, and we still need to figure out why. So let's take a look at Epic Mobile 2.1. We can see our issue count has changed in the last 2 widgets of row 1. the status and issue type breakdowns. Obviously, we have a concern. Looking at the far left widget, our release overview, 2.1 should be in pre-QA manual review, but we still see that we have tasks that are in project, or actually even worse, we still have some left to do. But we still don't know if we have a breakdown in our process, our engineering, or our infrastructure. So let's take a step further and look at our process overview. So this dashboard is pulling in metrics from Electric Flow, Jira, Jenkins, Robot Framework, and GitHub. The process overview could still be geared toward project leads, but more likely development team leads. From this single dashboard, I'm able to get a very broad view of how well not just the project is running, but the overall health of my automated processes. We're building, we're deploying, we're testing all autonomously. So we need to rely on the metrics to let us know what our success rates are and how well our underlying assets are sustaining our infrastructure, so to speak. The entire top row of this dashboard is to sustain insight into the overall process, and that would include the release and project health. The top row of widgets are carried from the previous dashboard for sustained context. So we're still trying to figure out what's going on with mobile version 2.1. So we want to filter down on our Epic Mobile 2.1. So from the Epic pull down, we'll go ahead and select Pied Piper Mobile 2.1, and we see we need to change our jobs. So from the Jenkins job name pull down, we'll select mobile, and then from the flow job name, we'll select Pied Piper Mobile. We can see that the metrics presented in the rightmost widget of row 1 are updated to show Mobile 2.1 Epic project information, and metrics in row 2 are updated. In row 2, the first widget here on the left is providing us the most recent test results for our Pied Piper mobile app. It's easy means of identifying recent failures as well as how many tests were run and passed. Before moving into the next widget, it's important to understand that it's a time-based widget. So in this case, we're looking at a 30-day span. In the middle here of row 2 is our success rate. So what this means is that our build success rate for our mobile app over the last month has been, well, obviously lower than we'd like to see. Certainly could be affected by our bottleneck that is presenting itself. The last widget in row 2, our mobile apps test success rate over the last 30 days. Well, that's been doing really well. Migrating down to the last row here, we're able to see how well our orchestration assets have been utilized, as far as our available resources. This is essentially the heart of our development automation, scalability, resource allocation in our development environment. And then obviously we also see our GitHub repo push. This is a very nice, easy to see overall development environment pulse check. The first widget here lets us know how often the engineers have pushed to the repo the last 3 days. The next 3 widgets are focused on the Jira tool specifically. We can see that the health is good. There's no jobs queued. However, the nodes online value is a bit concerning and could be relevant to our bottleneck, but we'll see. For those of you that don't know, Electric Flow controls devices through agents. So our 5th widget, the Electric Flow resource availability, is giving us insight into how efficient we have been utilizing our Electric Flow agents. Given our increased velocity, our increase in velocity, I would say that we're doing pretty good. But we can see in the last widget here, our Electric Flow job wait time is, well, that's high. We're waiting a long time for jobs to execute. This is an issue, and it's currently causing some headaches and slowdowns in our release pipeline. because of the wait time. But at this point, we still don't really know where the bottleneck is. As I mentioned, builds could be failing due to poorly coded software, and but there could be some correlation between the wait times and build failures. So we need to dig a little deeper here. So we're going to go ahead and look into our DevOps overview. For metrics on this dashboard here, we're pulling in Jenkins data, robot framework, and electric flow data. This dashboard, while it's still relevant to team leads, is probably geared toward engineers and testers. The top row is geared completely toward build metrics. So from left to right, we know what the latest build status is, what our average build times are, as well as the build duration over time. In this case, we're looking at a 7-day time span, and we're looking at our mobile app. But everything is looking good. Going into row 2, from left to right, we can see our build job successes and failures, our unit test successes and failures, functional test results, and average test duration. Again, everything so far is looking good. Moving into the bottom row, we've already spoken to this widget, but it's here again for deeper context. And the last widget is our test duration over time, and so far, everything's looking good. From that perspective, of build, unit test, functional test, so far it's looking pretty good. So at this point, we can rule out, our development pipeline itself as being an issue. So we're going to look a little deeper here, and we'll look at our development and infrastructure overview. For this dashboard, we'll pull in metrics from a variety of assets to build out this dashboard. Looking at the filters across the top, you can filter this content by assets. In this case, we're focused on the electric flow server itself. So if you note the host name there on the filter, it did in fact say flow. And so additionally, we're pulling in job run data from both electric flow and Jenkins. Well, why? Well, because we can overlay when jobs are executed and filter down on jobs, to see behavior at a given point in time. I'll spare you some of the filtering and naming of each one of these widgets. But the important thing is, it's all focused on system analytics information to see how well, or not in this case, a system is performing. But we can see, obviously, that the bright red box here, our flow memory usage. We now know, essentially, what our root cause of our bottleneck is at this point. This would affect our ability to sustain velocity, due to the impact on job wait times, and and it induces some hardships on our 2.1 release. So I hope so hopefully you've been able to see how easy it is to walk a forensic path to identify issues and deficiencies in the overall DevOps ecosystem, and from development to production, or cradle to grave, if you will. But again, so I thank you for your time, and I hope you found a lot of value from the demo. Go ahead and pass it back to Brian, and he's going to share with you some success stories.
Great. Hey, while we're waiting for Brian to pick it up, okay, Brian, you're there. Dave, I wanted to just mention, great demo, great look at the dashboard. Brian, if you're there, let's do it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and wrap this up. I know we want to make sure we have some time for some Q&A. So Dave, thanks for providing that demo. I think one of the most interesting things and takeaways that we've seen in putting together dashboards that combine both the infrastructure, the operation side, right, and the development team side, is you really can get that whole picture and be able to try to find some of those issues that maybe are underlying, that maybe at an initial glance just aren't evident within the overall dev team processes. So I thought it would be beneficial to share a little bit of some success stories that we've seen, both implementing electric flow and then following that implementation, some of the dashboarding, visualization, and metrics that teams have been able to actually see and witness and actually see the benefits of. So the first one, I'm going to share, we've done some work, obviously, with Sam and his team supporting a Fortune 500 aerospace and defense contractor. To give you a little bit of context into their product and their mission, a little bit different in the defense and aerospace world than in some other industries, but they're building UAV software for a particular, government client. And ultimately, what they were realizing is because they're doing this software development across 10 different labs, deployments were taking upwards of 12 days with up to 7 full-time staff to perform, right? Which is an enormous amount of time, right? In most industries, this is absolutely an incredible resource bottleneck. So what we were able to do by, leveraging some of the powers of electric flow and helping to automate some of these manual processes is ultimately reduce that time window from the 12 days with 7 people to down to 3 days with 2 staff. And some people may look at that and say 3 days with 2 staff, that's still a lot of time being wasted. Due to the nature of some of the manual steps in their process, that was currently where they've been able to see that efficiency. But ultimately, even that first step, they've been able to use and monitor using dashboards and seeing that efficiency of up to about 600 man-hours per month they're saving in this one particular scenario. The last thing I'll kind of share is another success story that we've seen and been able to use dashboards with as well. So we work with a leading multinational testing and measurement manufacturer that was building a lot of physical hardware devices, but also they're obviously building the software that runs on those. It's very much software that is specific to that very specific hardware that they're building. So they have a bare metal implementation, but they also have some virtualization. They're seeing some of the same problems that most teams are, where there's a slow release cycle. They were finding a lot of bugs in their software. At the time when we actually were working with them, they were, for the most part, using a fairly waterfall, development process. And what we were able to really kind of do is transition them using DevOps tools to really make the releases more efficient. So some of the metrics that Sam was talking about before, they were realizing pretty quickly and seeing, they've increased their release efficiency by 3 times. More importantly, by implementing some automated testing products and testing tools and processes, they were reducing bugs by 70%. When they looked at this using dashboards, the same as teams are looking at financial metrics and other parts of their business, they realized that through a lot of these processes, they were actually saving almost $9.5 million every year in their overall efficiency by being able to get software releases out sooner and being able to rely less on heavy burden teams. So just thought these were 2 good success stories to kind of share the power of looking at data that comes out of DevOps tools and once you've implemented those tools and really seeing the benefits it could make. So with that being said, that kind of wraps up our part of the presentation. So Alan, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to you for some questions that the audience may have.
Great, thank you. And again, guys, great demo, great presentation. I had high hopes and you've exceeded them. So let's go on.
Yeah, those stories, Brian, are amazing. I love to see that and hear those stories.
Yep. All right, first question. When we talk about the end state of implementation, how do you automate customer or end user validation, particularly when you may be trying to ramp up from 1 release per week to 1 per day, for example? Sam, that's a real DevOps question. You want to take a try, or Brian? Anyone want to have a
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. What I think the question is how do you help a team move from a pace of once a week to once a day? And I think, Brian and Dave were just sort of showing and talking about some of the things that's super important. Agile is as Agile does, and if you can get small feedback loops, I mean, Alan, earlier you said no one's really defined DevOps. I think Gene Kim has done a fantastic job of defining the principles that you should follow using his 3 ways. and those very frequent feedback loops at every part of the system, from the smallest cog to the biggest, finished product, needs to have a feedback loop associated with it. And if you can do that feedback loop and you can adjust, implementing a solution like Electric Flow underneath to orchestrate all these tools, you can iterate on your pipeline the same way you're iterating on the product that you're putting on the pipeline. Your pipeline is a product, and this telemetry helps you understand the health of that product in real time. And so it's a super powerful way of doing it. And I think if you go to answer the question, if you move towards automation and you move towards measurement, and you have the mindset of continuous improvement, that's 90% of the battle is the mindset of continuous improvement.
Agreed. Okay, Sam, this next one is a very Electric Cloud specific question. They want to know if Electric Cloud has Kubernetes type orchestration of applications across Docker containers. And that might be a little too technical, Sam. I don't know.
Very good question. We're actually reaching out right now. We do have the ability. GE Healthcare is a customer of ours that is using us to help orchestrate microservices in their environment for their Health Cloud initiative. We are looking for users out there who are really sort of pushing the envelope with what they're doing with containers. It is a hybrid bimodal world out there, and people, the Fowler Strangler pattern is being used. People are moving things to services. So we want to know what you're doing. So reach out to us if you're doing that and let us know. Our product management team would love to talk to you about what you're seeing and what you need. You can actually come to our website and you can download our product and you can play with it. So it'll for sure orchestrate whatever tools you have.
Okay, next question. Again, a little bit technical, Sam, but I have every confidence in you. Want to know what is involved in integrating the output of these disparate tools, such as Jira and the rest, into the Grafana dashboard. Do they first get integrated by Electric Cloud, and then the data flows from Electric Cloud is fed into Grafana, or how? And if so, how? By coding, scripting, API? What? Any?
That's not a me question.
No, that's a real engineer question.
So Alan, I can kind of take a stab at that. So just to give you a kind of a background, so what Stratus has done is we've developed a suite of several plugins that do integration that reach into these different tools. So some of what you've seen today is actually facilitated purely by our integration into Electric Flow. Electric Flow has provided a phenomenal platform to be able to more easily aggregate and get these metrics from these individual tools. What we've had to do in some other situations where the context is even more important to be able to pull that data out really in its almost native form is develop some custom plugins that ultimately feed into Grafana and then its underlying Telegraph database that we use to pull that information together. So what we typically find is, most organizations are implementing, the suite of DevOps tools that organization X uses versus organization Y could be very different. And it's important that we find a lot of times is taking that time to really figure out what tools are the right ones they should be using. And then once that's in place, then using some of the plugins that we already have built, as well as the ones that maybe need to be custom designed and developed for those organizations to make sure that that data is actually as rich as possible to make sure they can get the intelligence they need out of the DevOps environment.
Excellent. Next question. What does it take to set up one of these release dashboards?
So another great question. For the most part, I'll start with and say, Grafana is an open source platform, so we encourage people to go and try to get that set up. What we find a lot of times is organizations, do struggle with focusing on doing that along with their normal process of building their software and getting it kind of out the door. So, from a level of effort perspective, it obviously is very dependent on the organization and the team that's in place and their familiarity with the tool. what we found is a lot of times the plugins to make sure that we're integrating into these different DevOps tools is what it takes the longest amount of time. And then ultimately, it's not just the implementing of the dashboard, right? It's figuring out with the operations team, with the dev team, even with senior management, what visibility they want to actually see on these different screens to help them monitor in real time their efficiency. And that's usually, I would say, the longest amount of time, more than anything, is kind of going through several iterations of getting some of these dashboards and metrics and making sure that it's actually, in fact, you know, as accurate as possible.
Great. Let me, I want to return to the first question where Sam, I think we assumed what Andrew was asking, and he's clarified it. And in reading the clarification, it sounds this might be more of a Brian Dave answer. But to clarify Andrew's question, when you have manual user validation, regardless of how many systematic releases you can put in, you're constrained by end user validation or some manual validation work. That is, we ramp up automation but cannot have user groups constantly validating. Right? So how do you overcome that to ramp your releases, as he said, from like once a week to once a day or something? I'll throw it to Brian, David, Sam. If not, Andrew, we'll take this in writing, and Sam, maybe you could have someone from Electric Cloud give the shot, and we could write Andrew back with a better answer.
Yeah, I guess what the answer that I would give would be try and push as much of the automated testing as earlier in the cycle and make it completely hands-off, and then treat that stage as you know, as a continuous delivery point, if you will, and say, okay, this one, based on all the features that have been closed off in Jira and all the things that I think we're ready to go, this is the one out of the 30 that were done today, this is the one that I'd like to present forward as a release candidate for this group. So you'd still have, you know, likely you'd have 50 or 80 successful builds that are ready to be deployed, but you really only need to go through that end validation for the one that you've determined from a business perspective covers all the features that you want it to be covering. It's got the quality, efficiency that you're looking for and the coverage that you're looking for. And now it's time to bother the meat puppets, right, the humans, to see what we think. That would be sort of, I don't know that there's any other way to get around that. If you have to have a manual validation, then you got to have a manual validation.
Got it. Next question. What was the duration, Brian, this is really for you, I guess. What was the duration of the engagement you referenced in success story number 2?
So that's a great question. The duration of that was actually, it was about between 9 and 12 months in total that we were working hand in hand with that organization. And what we found a lot of times is from a DevOps engagement perspective, we always, you know, just like any other project, right, you know, you want to start with, you know, some potentially low-hanging fruit. If there's already, in their case, they were already invested into a particular testing platform. So part of the first step was really just making sure that was working more efficiently. And then from there, it really, when they saw the efficiencies that they were gaining by just purely releasing software that was a lot less, with a lot less defects, we were able to really accelerate them from where they were to the end state when we left them in about, you know, 9 to 12 months. And then part of it is we've been kind of, you know, we typically check back, you know, in with organizations after those engagements when they're at a point where they're very happy with their overall efficiency, and look at them again in, you know, maybe 6-month time frame and offer to do, you know, some type of evaluation to see if there's any other areas as their businesses evolved, as the tools have evolved, and as you know, their needs have evolved, you know, if we can help them out in any other additional ways.
Okay. Before I get to the next question, you know, we do have all 3 of your contact info up on screen. So if anyone has questions, maybe they didn't want to share in public, you can write to Sam or Brian or Dave. Dave, next question's for you. Is the dashboard showing real-time or near real-time data?
Yes. So as you go through the dashboard, you would have noticed some are static, some are single stat widgets, others are displayed over time. But yes, yeah, it is pulling in near real time.
Great.
It's
One other
also
thing
okay.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry, go ahead.
Dave, finish. Sam, go ahead.
Okay. One other thing I was going to say is from a real-time perspective, the information that we can pull into Electric Flow, because we're touching all these tools, we're able to get real-time information out of the log files for all these tools, and you can actually take action based on it. We have a processor that analyzes the log files in real time and gives you the ability to programmatically change the pipeline based on certain criteria or performance efficiencies, whatever sort of state you'd like to base that decision on. You can change that state based on real-time log information and then take action on it, which becomes really powerful for people when you want to do things like, I guess it was Adam or Arnold, I don't remember the name, Andrew, who was asking about, how do I do that so I don't bother my end users all the time asking them to validate things. Well, you can have that pipeline be dynamically going through specific portions of your Selenium test suite, if you will, before you decide to get the folks involved, if you've made a change to some area of your code, or if the quality wasn't high enough when it popped out the end of Selenium.
Yep. Hey, guys, we actually have some other great questions in here, but we are at the top of the hour, and I'm going to need to pull the plug. What I'd like to do is Sam and Brian and Dave, we'll get you these questions in writing. If we can get some answers to these people, some of them are excellent questions. Some are very product specific in terms of who does Electric Cloud integrate with. Sam, you could probably get some quick answers to these folks, but we just don't have time to do it today. It's already 1 minute past the hour. Let me wrap up. Sam, as always, fantastic job. Thanks and kudos to you and the whole Electric Cloud team. Looking forward to seeing you at DevOps Enterprise Summit in San Francisco, November, is it 6th? 7th through 9th. I'm flying the 6th. So great to, looking forward to seeing you there, and great work. Brian and Dave, you guys did amazing, and based upon your presentation today, I'm sure people are going to want to hear more and find out more about STRATUS Solutions. Thank you so much.
Speaking at DevOps Enterprise Summit, so come
and they will be speaking. I might even video them for YouTube. We'll go from there. But guys, seriously, thank you. Great demo, great presentations. Most of all, to those of you who've stayed on all the way here, 2 minutes after, thanks very much. This is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com, and we'll see you soon on another DevOps.com webinar. Many thanks to Electric Cloud for sponsoring today. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day.